want to thank you for joining us for another episode of Marking the Times. It's great to have you with us. This is May the 22nd. I don't often give the date, but today's May the 22nd, and the reason that's important is this is Jerusalem Day. It started yesterday, will end this evening in the land of Israel. And Jerusalem Day is the newest day. It's the most recent addition to the Hebrew calendar as far as a holiday or a day that's commemorated on the Jewish calendar. And Jerusalem Day celebrates the reunification of Israel's capital, the city of Jerusalem, under Jewish sovereignty back in 1967. So it's the 53rd anniversary of the reunification of the Jewish capital in the city of Jerusalem. And many of you may be old enough to remember, or maybe you've seen it somehow in a documentary or on television, the Jewish paratroopers that were there, that made their way to the Wailing Wall back in 1967 during the Six-Day War in Israel. And it's a very important day for Israel now as they celebrate the reunification of their capital. And of course, President Trump has recently moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in a very important, a very symbolic move of recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which it has been for 3,000 years, as the city of David. But, while Israel celebrates Jerusalem Day, the reunification of their capital, at the same time, Arab nations, especially the nation of Iran, which is not Arab, they're a Farsi nation. But Iran of course, uses this as an opportunity to denounce Israel, to reaffirm their hatred for Israel, their desire to destroy Israel. The word Quds is the Arabic word for Jerusalem, and so you'll often hear about El Quds Day. That's Jerusalem Day. And of course, they celebrate it in a different way by lambasting Israel and saying they want to destroy them. You may remember that the general Qasem Soleimani, who was killed by the United States back in January, he was a leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, but of the Quds Force, which again is this Jerusalem force. So it shows you how much they're obsessed with the city of Jerusalem and regaining that under their control. Today on this Jerusalem Day, the leader Ayatollah Khamenei, made this kind of statements he usually makes. He called Israel a tumor that must be eradicated and removed. He said how wonderful it is that Iran is supplying military supplies to Palestinians. Of course, they did the normal thing of burning U.S. and Israeli flags. The Quds Force, or the Quds Day celebration, though, in Iran was greatly limited this year because of coronavirus, as was the Jerusalem Day celebration in the land of Israel. But Iran will stop at nothing to drive Israel out of their land. In fact, Khomeini made another statement. He said that Iran will support any nation or group that fights Israel. So anybody that hates Israel, anybody that wants to fight Israel, they're immediately, obviously, for that group. There's been a report recently that Iran has been moving their troops out of Syria, that they're going to leave Syria. That's probably not true from what I've been reading. They may be rearranging, they may be removing a few troops, but they're going to keep their presence there because they've really gained a foothold right there on Israel's northern border in Syria. Another couple of things I think are fascinating is Iran is shipping oil to Venezuela. And they're doing that under threat by the United States. Venezuelan ships are kind of going along and escorting this Iranian ship bringing oil to Venezuela, which is sad because Venezuela has plenty of oil, but of course their country has basically just fallen apart here in recent months. But the U.S. has threatened that, and that's going to be an interesting thing to see if that escalates. Also, the U.S. has recently put heavy sanctions on Iran's interior minister because of human rights violations in Iran. The U.S. has also just made given a recent edict that ships must stay 100 meters away from any U.S. warship in the Persian Gulf. Because those small boats, the gunboats, Iranian gunboats, will get very close to U.S. ships. And so they have to stay at least 109 yards away, or the U.S. is going to take that as a possible provocation and take defensive measures. So it's just constant things are happening between the U.S. and Iran, with Israel and Iran. And really the biggest problem, probably the biggest flashpoint, is with Hezbollah, who are really entrenched in Lebanon, right on Israel's northern border. In fact, I just read an article yesterday that says 20 years after the withdrawal, Israel and Hezbollah brace for war. There was a 34-day war in July of 2006 between Hezbollah and Israel. It's called the Hezbollah War, or sometimes the July War. And there are recent rumblings there that this war is about to break out again at any time. I mean, there's surely a standoff and a showdown there all the time between Israel and Hezbollah. But there's real fear that it's going to break out into the open basically at any time. And summer seems to be when these things happen a lot between Israel and Hezbollah. So a lot of people are keeping their eyes on what's happening there. But the next thing that'll happen, I think, will be a northern invasion. It'll be some kind of a flare-up between Israel and Hezbollah, of course, which is a proxy of Iran. They try to use their proxies in Hezbollah and down in the Islamic Jihad in Gaza to really kind of just keep Israel irritated and at odds all the time. But again, I mention all these things because these are foreshocks of Ezekiel 38, the passage that predicts an Iranian-Russian invasion of Israel in the end times. And every year at Jerusalem Day, as the Jewish people celebrate the reunification of their capital in 1967, Iran, again, threatens to wipe them off the map, calls them a tumor. And this is the same time Iran's trying to cross the nuclear finish line. They're trying to get all kinds of advanced missile technology. So it's just the same thing that keeps happening. But there's a constant buildup, though, an escalation to some major conflict that's probably not too far down the road. And again, all of this is just a foreshock or a foreshadow of what's predicted in Ezekiel 38. So with all that's happening here in America with coronavirus and all that, we're still keeping our eyes on Iran and what's happening there. And something could break out there tragically very soon. Well, thank you for joining us again for another episode of Marking the Times. God bless you. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.